Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Pleased to be joining you. Looking forward to having our good buddy Kent McCausland joining us here in just a moment. You'll see him on screen momentarily. Kent, of course, former Hawkeye sharpshooting great, still holds some long-distance shooting records for the Hawkeyes. Kent, of course, as you know, has joined us all 6 years throughout this statewide television run. And Kent, when we talked to you last year, you were just going into the Iowa High School Boys Athletic Association Hall of Fame in basketball, you and former Hawkeye assistant Kirk Sparrow. So it is great to see you again. Our first talk on air, Kent, since Ben McCollum took over. We talked a little bit off camera, but let's bring it on camera. First of all, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us. And how's everything going with you, Kent?
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And everything's going terrific.
How do you see the Hawks right now when I say that to you at the end of January, 14-5, 4-4? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, initially, I just think it's a tremendous success. I have to tell you, I mean, this team has instituted an entirely new system, all new players. I mean, Cooper Koch is essentially the only holdover, and he only played, a handful of games last year as far as experience playing in the Big Ten. I have to. It's beyond what I thought. I mean, they just looked small. They look like they need a big guy to guard the rim and to rebound. They've held their own in the rebounding department, and I think their defense helps them do that. Just at times, I think scoring can be difficult. They really look to Bennett Sturts to make things happen for them when the shot clock's running down. We call it handing a grenade to somebody at the end. 5 seconds left in the shot clock, and you hand the ball to a grenade as a grenade to. In my time, Andre Woolridge, but he found a way to figure that one out. And they hand it to Bennett Sturts. He's got to figure it out. So that's a tough job, and he does it without what? His face never changes, right? He just plays and he keeps moving forward. And I think he likes his teammates. I think they play hard. They do things the right way. So I think McCollum is happy with, this crew, but McCollum is also the type not be happy with anything. He wants to push, he wants to improve, he wants to get better. At the same time, he wants to praise at the right times. I would say, 500 in the Big Ten and getting some wins over some good top opponents, some ranked opponents, I think is going to be important because you want to get into the tournament. But I think if you're 500 in the Big Ten and you find a way to beat a couple good teams, you might find yourself in the big dance. And so I think that'd be an unbelievable accomplishment for this group.
Being a former player, and your thoughts on the students being closer to the floor?
Yeah, I think, from our perspective, that was never an issue when I played. The students were going to come, the fans were going to come, and it was loud and it was what you expect it to be for Carver Hawkeye Arena, I think, as my time was there. Luckily, we did have a good year, that last year with Dr. Tom. It could have gone one way or the other, I think, in that situation, but we had a solid team. Dr. Tom had us rolling, and so we had some success. So then you fast forward, and there was some apathy towards putting some rear ends in the seats, and there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, late nights on Tuesdays, you're not going to draw a huge crowd. I mean, that's a change from an inventory TV perspective. In how do you broadcast, Big Ten games, and how many different channels are they on? So there's that piece. So that's changed. The amount of options and things to do as a student, I think that's changed. I think going to football and basketball games was just what you did as a student at the University of Iowa and many universities. Well, that's changed. With call it cell phones, call it things to do, call it whatever you want, but there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of different things that go on. So I think it needed to be done. I think the marketing is getting better. The music is getting better. The screen, you got this huge jumbotron. Okay, let's use it. How do we use it to keep the fans engaged? And it's kind of a show. I mean, it is kind of a little bit of a how do you have a good time and put on a good show as well as win basketball games? And I think Iowa is getting better at that, and bringing students closer to the floor is part of that. But I think that's part of how do we create a great atmosphere and create a tough environment for visitors to come into. Let's put the students over there next to them during timeouts. Let's do some different things. And so I think it's been a positive, and I think you just keep building on it year after year.
And I think the other thing you mentioned off there, we'll bring it on here. Oh, by the way, the product on the floor, it helps when you're winning or winning games and playing well. And I love that Ben McCollum talked about that. The second he stepped foot on campus and took the job, He went out and met students. He's been at Hawkeye football games, roaming the aisles, high-fiving students, going through that student section, and really has reached out and made it a man of the people type of thing. And I think you're exactly right. On Tuesday night with a heavy snowstorm at an 8 o'clock game, and you're expecting fans to come in from Sioux City or from Northeast Iowa, Southeast Iowa, right from all the corners and drive 3 or 4 hours and then add time on top of that with inclement weather. Now you got a ball game, to look at and go, oh yeah, we got to play. So that's what I'm impressed about right now, Kent, is they're getting, on average between 10 and 11,000 a night. Some games more, some games not much less, right around that average. So it's been tough, as you mentioned. There are reasons for it, and we know it. But again, winning seems to cure all of that. And I want to get back to that with you about the product on the floor. When you talk about the Drake guys, and of course, obviously led by Bennett Sturts, but then you take a look at Tavion Banks. Initially, it was Cam Manuel, and he came in and started playing great guns. And, he's got a lot on his plate being a shorter guy playing that post and trying to deal with a lot defensively and offensively. But, of course, Sturts, as you mentioned, great guy to hand a grenade to as the shot clock is getting down to 0 and Bennett's going to take over and score. But, Cooper Koch, as we mentioned, has really played well into the system, started every game. And now that he's back healthy into his redshirt freshman year, and you think about that, a lot of these guys are young. So Tavion Banks will be back again next year. And then you've had some timely shooting, of course, with Isaiah Howard and Cale Combs and some of those guys. And Tate Sage is a freshman where I think even Ben McCollum has said, wow, I'm really surprised at how he stepped in as a freshman right away, the freshman out of Oklahoma, and how he's just taken over. And Kent, you know what that's like when you're supposed to be, you started at the end of your, middle and end of your career, but initially coming in, as you mentioned, you were supposed to be that sharpshooter off the bench. That's fun, a fun role. But also, if you've missed a shot or two as you're smiling off camera, let's bring it on camera, that may not be as fun. So I like the fact that Tate Sage, what did he say the other day on a presser after the game? I don't fear any man. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty heady talk for a freshman. But let's talk a little bit about Tate Sage, please, Kent.
Yeah, you bet. No, I like his athleticism. He's very bouncy as an athlete. But I think what he really does well is just play without the ball. And when he cuts, he gets opportunities to score. And, I think you have to also look at the Iowa Hawkeyes don't have 7-footers, but they're all pretty good sized kids, pretty, 6'5" to 6'8", 6'9". So they do have the opportunity to, as they have been doing, which is play solid defense. You have great balance and then rebound the ball together. They're not just depending on one guy to go get those rebounds. And Tate Sage is one of those guys that can go get rebounds. He defends hard. He's a solid shooter. Is he a great shooter? No, not yet. But is he a solid shooter? You bet. And I think finishing at the rim, we've seen him be able to do that now at a Big Ten level. That is something you have to have. That's a talent, that not everybody has. And he's really stepped in. And Coach McCollum, he's looking for guys. I mean, he plays pretty much 8 guys, right? And Cale Combs comes to life at Purdue. Okay, now can you keep adding to it and keep growing? And that's part of the maturation. That's part of the game slowing down for you, so you know what to do on the offensive end, running your stuff. So it's fun to watch some of these young guys figure it out. And this is kind of why I'm talking about 500 in the Big Ten would be pretty fantastic. We got a bunch of young guys that haven't done this before. And to just expect that Coach McCollum comes in and takes a group and all of a sudden we're just a 7 seed or a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament, I think that's pretty unfair to this group. They've got to grow and get better, which they're doing, but it does take time. So I think it takes a little patience. I do love, you go to Carver Hawkeye Arena and it's really fun to enjoy the fans getting behind a defensive, it's not something that I've ever probably experienced, and people are probably laughing at listening to this. It's not something that I was probably great at, but when we were good at our zone and good at doing what we did pressure-wise under Dr. Tom, that place got loud because they knew the run was coming. Now they watch and we're playing this tough man-to-man defense, and you're helping and you're recovering, and we've got a pretty smart fan base that's watching this. So when it gets down to 10 seconds, then they start to get loud when that shot clock's going. Supporting those kids as they defend and use the scouting report and use what they've been taught in practice. And McCollum has said, hey, concentrate. You hear him a lot talk about being locked in and concentrating on the scouting report, because that's how you win ball games. And I think the fans respond to that.
So he is Kent McCausland. I am Dave O'Hara. This is Hawkeye. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.
Hawkeye is brought to you by BettorEdge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on BettorEdge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kieski, BettorEdge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at bettoredge.com/Hawkeyed and get $10 to start winning more today. BettorEdge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Kent McCausland is kind enough to join us for the whole show. In the first segment, Kent and I talked Hawkeye men's basketball. Now we're going to talk Hawkeye women's basketball, and then we'll close out the show in the next segment, third and final segment, talking Chris Street memories. Unfortunate passing of Chris happened 33 years ago, and Kent and I want to regale you in some of those stories. I do this every year. Hey, Kent, for the first time since the Caitlin Clark era, and I'm not talking 100 years ago, we're talking 2 years ago, but still, Hawkeye women now inside the top 10, number 8, as we record this on Monday afternoon, January 26th. And Ken, it's amazing to me when you take a look back to that Caitlin Clark era of 2 years ago and you see what's happening now. The Hawkeye women still, we talked about crowds for the men and crowds now for the women's games. It's sold out and continually sold out for another year. So Player of the Week honors, Freshman of the Week honors in the Big Ten, Ava Hayden, Big Ten Player of the Week this week in women's basketball. Addie Deal, oh, by the way, another Freshman of the Week honor goes to Addie. Congrats. And a Naismith Award Player of the Week goes to Hannah Stuelke. Kent, I mentioned this on last week's show, and I want to continue to mention it until it doesn't happen anymore. But you can basically take the 4-5 position for the Hawkeye women, Ava Hayden and Hannah Stuelke, and you can basically, Ken, I can't believe I'm going to say this to you again, you can write down a 40-20 spot. Basically, those two are averaging a double-double, 20 and 10. Now, that's close, about 18 and 9 and 15 and 9, but Kent, those are unheard of numbers. Then you get a chance to bring in a 6'5 freshman from Alaska off the bench in Layla Hayes, if you need to spell either one of those two, foul trouble or fatigue with Ava and Hannah. Then you got great guard play and the old the ever stalwart in Kylie Feuerbach, the senior. And now, unfortunately, Taylor McCabe, we saw as she posted on social media earlier today, she is done for the year with an ACL, or it looks like it's her knee, done for the year in her career at Iowa. And oh, what a heartbreak, because she was starting to really round in nicely to her three-point form. Then you come in, Addie Deal now off the bench. But Kent, I know you know this when you mentioned Andre Woolridge earlier on your teams back in the heyday with Tom Davis. And you guys are still that 99 team, you and Jess Settles and J.R. Koch, the last Hawkeye men's basketball team to go to a Sweet 16 and or beyond. And that was 99. So hopefully the Hawk men can change that this year. But Kent, you take a look at what's happening on this Hawkeye women. I lay all this out there for you for this reason. You take a look at all that, and even with the loss now of Taylor McCabe, but you mentioned Andre Woolridge at the point. I thought initially there was a lot of hubbub about chit-chat, right? And I'm like, what's she going to do, 5'4"? Kent, I am so happy to have missed that boat, and now I'm on. Unbelievable, this 5'4" dynamo. What a player, Kent.
It is really fun to watch, and I think I joined a lot of Hawk fans. Obviously, the place is sold out for women's basketball. Caitlin Clark really changed, I think, everybody's viewpoint on Iowa basketball and women's basketball, maybe in general, as you can see across the country. But in Iowa specifically, people didn't go away. People enjoyed, coming to watch the women play. And I think it's going to only bode well. And I think we've already seen it recruiting wise. It has been a huge boon to Jan Jensen and her staff. And okay, how do we use this? Because it's an opportunity, and the opportunity was there for a short window, and here it is. Now you're getting the Addie Deals of the world, and you're bringing in some of these great talent. A chit chat says I could go to a lot of different places, but Iowa is pretty awesome, just due to, I think, the crowd, the excitement. There might be some money involved, all these different things that now are involved in it. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of these women's basketball players, they just want to play in front of a great crowd and a great atmosphere and go out, get after it and see what they can do. Connecticut has had that for a very long time. Tennessee had it under Pat Summitt for a very long time. Now Iowa's getting their chance, and I think the fans deserve a lot of credit for it. So you add, Hannah Stuelke continues her run as just being, I think, that energy player. Now she's the elder statesman on this team. Ava Hayden is extremely talented with both hands around the rim. Fun to watch. Taylor McCabe was a terrific shooter, just knockdown shooter for Iowa. So that's going to hurt to lose, that. But Addie Deal gets to step in, and now she's gone through, several games in the Big Ten. So she's going to bring a lot. She can shoot it, but she can also take it to the hole a little bit. And I think just bring that offensive talent. Now she's got to learn the other pieces that Jan Jensen wants to do, but could be it's a good to have a deep bench when you're in this situation with any team, men's or women's in the Big Ten, because you're going to have injuries, you're going to have sickness. So there's been some very positive momentum there, and we'll see what happens. I think the hard part is to look at it. You lost to Connecticut in a really bad way earlier in the year, so that there's that divide of like really good teams. Can you get to the point where you can be a really good team? Can you defend and get to the point where you're in that Final Four again? Unfortunately, that's the expectation. That's the excitement of, hey, how good can we be? We're in the top 10, so keep it rolling.
Well, and there's upcoming games that I mentioned after that USC and UCLA game. Let's not forget, as I mentioned, with Juju Watkins being out for SC, if she was there, they'd be a whole different team. Even though she's not there, I still think Coach Gottlieb and the Trojans will have something on the road when the Hawks come in. It's California and take that West Coast trip. And then right after that, they play in Westwood against UCLA at Pauley Pavilion, the famous Pauley Pavilion, the house that John Wooden built. And so now you're going to see Lauren Betts, the 6'7" all-everything center. She's still around, number 3 ranked UCLA. And by the way, after those games, Ken, like I said, I don't want to get too far into the schedule. Then they come back home and face a good Minnesota team they're going to be ready in their little border war skirmish. And then you take a look at upcoming games against around the top 10, Michigan. They're very tough again this year. Oh, by the way, the Hawks still have to go back to Nebraska after beating Nebraska in Iowa City. So as you mentioned, I love that you said that. You're a Big Ten veteran. You've played the wars of the Big Ten and the men's side. There's always big games upcoming. And just, even when you play a team like Northwestern, as the Hawkeye women found out, you're going to be, now that you're in top 10 and you're the rock stars since the Caitlin Clark era, every game you go in and play, either on the road or at home, you're that team's Super Bowl. That's how that works, isn't it, Ken? Everybody gets up for you.
That's the way it goes. And we did it when other teams came to our place, right? This Iowa men's team right now. Hey, Illinois comes in. Hey, this is an opportunity. Well, Illinois has got 2 7'2" guys shooting threes. They've got Boswell, who's down playing defense against Sturts and making it really tough on him. And then Illinois is a legitimate basketball team. Paige Stojakovic's kid is out there running around, scoring at will. So that's a real deal basketball team. But you had an opportunity to beat them in Carver Hawkeye. Now you go on the road, that's going to be even tougher. But you had a chance. And so, that's how you build a resume. And now Iowa is the resume builder for a lot of these schools when the women come in to town. So it's an opportunity to go beat the women. They're going to be a top 10 team. And now you can put on your resume that we beat a top 10 team. That's just the way it goes.
And that's a great analogy, taking from right into the men's team into the women's team. That's how that works. You're exactly right. So again, 18-2 overall, 9-0 in the Big Ten as we record this on Monday afternoon, January 26th. And it's great stuff, exciting time. So for Kent McCausland, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more to close out the show in just a few moments.
If you want to go faster this spring to capture that additional yield, protect your seed when you're planting early. Here's Lynn Williams, our General Sales Manager.
There's no doubt that planting early increases yield potential, but there is risk. With Merschman Seed Starting Line and Starting Line Plus seed treatments, we are managing those risks. Combine that with soybean varieties with proven defensive packages, and you're going to see higher yield potential across all your acres.
Contact your local Merschman Seed dealer today and find out about Starting Line and Starting Line Plus soybean seed treatments. From Merschman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Kent McCausland joining us, kind enough to join us throughout the whole show this week. Kent, former Hawkeye, sharpshooting great. Kent, I have to do this every year because I shouldn't say I have to. I love doing this every year, but I wish it was for a different reason. Obviously, Chris Street passed away tragically and sadly 33 years ago. I can't believe I'm saying that to you, Kent. 33 years ago, last Monday, it was the anniversary of the passing, January 19th, 1993. And it was 2 weeks before Chris would have turned 21 years old. So to think of a 53, 54-year-old Chris Street, talk about, what might have been. And I think about, after talking to Jess Settles in years past, Kent, about, what would have happened if you and Chris would have been on that same team? You'd have been a freshman. He was Big Ten Freshman of the Year, Jess was. Chris Street, you talk about the point of that zone in the face of Hawkeye basketball. But really, Kent, what I look at for a player like you grew up in the Waterloo area, played at Waterloo West, played at Iowa. Your dad was a former Hawkeye, was a Hawkeye broadcaster, Mac McCausland, the legend. And you look at a guy like Chris Street, and Jess Settles said it, and Jess, a former teammate of yours. So you and Chris were apart by a year, so another year, because then you redshirted the year after Chris passed away. And that would have been, he'd have been done. That would have been your freshman year, but you played from 95 to 99. So what I find fascinating is, boy, you think of what it might have been, not just the potential of Chris in the NBA, but with that Hawkeye program. And then you talked about off the air, that team and how it changed not just the perspective and perception of that team, but all of Hawkeye basketball in the Hawkeye State, Kent.
Yeah, I think you have to look at a couple things when you have a void like that. So one is Mike and Patty Street, they lost a son, right? And so then they, I think, really took to the Iowa basketball program after, I think, some time to be away and a tough mourning period. But now you look at how they react around me when they see me, or JR, or Jordan Bohannon when he misses the free throw on purpose so that he can share the record with Chris Street, or they see Jess Settles because they know that they knew Chris. I think they live a little bit through the excitement of Iowa basketball still. And I think Fran McCaffrey did a fantastic job of incorporating Mike and Patty into the Iowa basketball family. And that's one of the things I was really excited and proud of Coach McCaffrey and his staff. They really did invite the Street family into their world and celebrated them. So, I mean, that's fantastic. Coach McCollum was doing the same thing. You see it on the video. Go to Carver Hawkeye Arena and watch the intro video. It's about what is it to be a Hawkeye. And for him, as a youngster, it was about Chris Street. And Chris Street was that type of performer. So, the void that is left. Then also, as you move forward, I was just thinking as you were talking, like, I maybe would have played with him a year, and honestly, probably I wouldn't have played. He would have been playing, right? I'd have been cheering for him for a year. But he would have, let's say he goes on to the NBA. Let's say he just goes on and plays in Europe, either one. He would have come back to Iowa City and played in the Prime Time League and been around and taught guys how to play hard and how to work hard and be around Ryan Bowen and be around Jess Settles and be around Daryl Moore. And it just, how fun would that have been to glom some of that information from him to make us better? I think there are just some players that have that impact. They come back and they do that. Les Jepson was that for me. He came back, played in the Prime Time League. But man, add Chris Street to that mix, and I think we're all probably better basketball players. But you can't manufacture that. You can't just create it. It's a void. And so I think there's a void in a lot of people's lives. And I didn't know him personally like a Wade Looking Bill or Troy Skinner did, but my one best interaction with Chris was way back in the day. We're talking a long time ago, but they used to do these scrimmages. So they'd come to Waterloo, the whole basketball team, and they'd scrimmage each other in Waterloo so people could go watch and check it out and get autographs and all that kind of stuff afterwards. And Chris came as a freshman, and my dad was so high on, he's like, you got to watch Chris Street. He's unbelievable. You just watch him and he was everything that you hoped he would be. And then I got to go to dinner because, of course, I'm tagging along with my dad. I go to dinner with the team and sit down, and who sits down with me but Chris Street, because he's a freshman, and probably none of the seniors or juniors really wanted to hang out with him, right? That's just the way it goes. And he just struck up a conversation. And so everything that you hear about Chris being a down-to-earth Iowa kid to me is 100% accurate. And he just chatted with me, probably asked me how school was going. I probably couldn't put 3 words together when I'm talking to him because he's an Iowa basketball player and I'm just a little freshman in high school. So, just a terrific interaction. And then you just hear all the stories. You hear about Dr. Tom, how he changed as a coach. Used to be hard-nosed, in your face, probably had some choice words here and there, but Chris's passing changed him a little bit. Still tough, still a teacher, but maybe in a different way, because life is short, and all of a sudden it was over for Chris. And I think that's something that overcomes all of us at some point, probably when we lose a friend, or a parent, what have you, that life is short. And so he changed a little bit. So I think there's an impact that he leaves behind.
Kent, great to see you. Look forward to catching up with you again very soon. And thanks again. Good to see you. Thanks, Kent.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you.
Truly my pleasure. For Kent McCausland, I'm Dave O'Hara. Thanks also to my production partners at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com, Greg Kajewski and James Stiles, and to you, the viewers. For Hawkeye, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from us. Thanks to all of you.